Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to Talk Leadership with Cedrick. Everybody needs a little TLC, and I am excited to be here with you tonight. Today is the start of Women Empowerment Month on Talk Leadership with Cedrick. Talk Leadership with Cedrick is where we focus on leadership and personal growth with business leaders, educators, and local thought leaders. Our goal is to introduce our audience to leaders who are making an impact with innovative ideas. Our guiding leadership principle is the law of contribution, which says growing yourself enables you to grow others. So you can't give what you don't have. So first, you must grow yourself in order to grow others. Now, we believe that outstanding leaders like yourself will help us to help others. So tonight, we have another dynamic leader with us. And I'm so excited to have her on to kick off Women Empowerment Month. So guests, audience, I want you guys to sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation that we're going to be having with Miss Kathy Nemmers. And so welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you, Cedrick. Great to be here.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here. Now, every night I like to do a proper introduction of my guests. So let me do a proper introduction. Kathy Nemmers recently retired as an on-staff registered nurse at Bellin Health Systems in Green Bay, Wisconsin. During the past 4 years, she specialized in women's health, focusing on screening and clinical treatment for women of all ages. Kathy also worked for Abbott Laboratories for 30 years, retiring in 2014. Her last role was a director of business development for Abbott Molecular Diagnostics. During her tenure at Abbott, she held over 15 positions across many functional areas, to include management and director positions in the commercial operations, business development, R&D, technical products development, manufacturing operations, and supply chain organizations across both Abbott Diagnostics and Abbott Molecular Medical Devices divisions. 40 years ago, Kathy launched her business career at Procter & Gamble. I know it only looks like she's like maybe 5 years ago, right? But 40 years ago, she launched her career at Procter & Gamble, where she honed her commercial skills for 3 years before joining Abbott Laboratories. Kathy's heart lies in faithfully helping those with health disparities. She's involved in medical mission work, where she has assisted in conducting monthly medical screenings for the indigent population in the inner city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in their City on the Hill organization. And she's also participated in international medical missions through the Friends of Haiti organization. She currently is devising plans and programs addressing health disparities on the Gila Indian Reservation in Arizona. She also serves as an advisor for the Perot Medical, a biomedical device startup company in Boston, Massachusetts. She has served on the board of directors of many community nonprofit organizations and has held a variety of leadership positions within those boards. She was awarded her Bachelor of Science degree in nursing, graduating as cum laude from Bellin College. She also has a Bachelor of Science undergrad degree in business management and marketing from Minnesota State University. And she is currently working on her master's of theology at North Park Seminary with an emphasis on integrating faith with health in clinical and congregational settings. Kathy currently resides in Scottsdale, Arizona, and is married to my good friend, Mr. Joseph Nemmers, and they have 9 children and 5 grandchildren. So welcome, Kathy, to the show.
Thank you, Cedrick. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm excited to talk with you today, and glad that you're going to be here with us today. So let's just get it out front. So how is Joe doing?
Well, he's doing great. I was so tickled when you asked me to be on the show because, Joe's been on it quite a number of times and I've watched him and I'm very honored to be here today, and hopefully I can give some little nuggets of helpful information to those watching.
Yes, he is like, senior co-host and executive producer and all.
Yeah, I liked it when he did an interview of you. That was great.
That
Turn the
was
tables.
yes. So, Kathy, your bio screams consistency and intentionality, right? What was the goal when you started out many, many years ago, right? Well, I'm sorry, not what was the goal? Was that the goal when you started out many years ago? If it wasn't, do you remember what your goal was in the beginning when you're starting out your career?
Well, I was one of those that, like, I always knew what I wanted to do from 12 years old, and people always kind of like, how did you know? And my dad was a businessman, and he had a business office in the house before that was even a thing. And I used to play, like, I remember being 12 years old and I'd be doing expense reports in his office and pretending I was typing and all this, how sick is that? But I loved it. So I wrote my destiny at that time at 12 years old. But I went into the university thinking I'm going to do a management degree, and I got a marketing degree also. But in that process, as you go through life, you always add, you learn things as you go. So you additively add that into your scope and what you want to do in the future. So while I was in college, I worked for the local ambulance service. I was an emergency med tech. And I, at that time, then determined I wanted to be in the healthcare sector of business. So I was, once again, really more defining exactly what route I wanted to go eventually. And I found once I was getting out of almost graduating, that to be in the role I wanted to in a healthcare setting, I needed to get some experience first. So that's why I went with Procter & Gamble. I was there 3 years, and then I started with Abbott, which was a great long-term career in healthcare.
Wow. Yeah. So you say, well, I'll spend 3 years over here. I'll get my feet wet. Then I'll go and join the big boys.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're from North Dakota. And I was telling you before the show started, my son lives in Williston.
Yes.
North Dakota.
Yes. I found that really, I didn't know that. So that's like, next time I'm there, I'll go see him and say hi.
I'm sure he'll be glad to see someone. So how did you get from North Dakota to like the big city?
That's a really good question. So I grew up partly in North Dakota, but I did spend part of my years growing up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Denver, Colorado. So I did get a taste of the big city, growing up. And also our family traveled across the United States on vacations. That was one thing I always look fondly on, that we had that opportunity to do that. So I was exposed to a lot of things growing up, a lot of big cities, small cities, all across the United States. And what it taught me was, one, you have to adapt, and two, the world is our oyster. I mean, there's just so much opportunity across, the 50 states. It's just endless. So I think those formative years really taught me that, North Dakota, it's a great place to grow up, but I wanted to seek kind of even, some more adventure. So I left the state of North Dakota and Minnesota right after I graduated.
Wow. Interesting. So, one of the things I want our audience to gain from our conversation tonight is a sense of empowerment, persistence, focus, dedication. And with 30 years at Abbott, 15 different job responsibilities, you have to have all of those skill sets, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And Abbott's a big conservative company, male-dominated company when you were coming up. So what role did those skills play in helping you navigate that environment?
Well, you and I were both at Abbott in similar time frames, and we knew there were some real challenges there. Um, but one of the things that I've always felt I built my foundation on was that you have to perform and have results, and all that stuff kind of seems to go away, so you can buy into the narrative, the male dominance or whatever, or you can prove, hey, I can perform. I always wanted to shine and make sure that my reputation was first and foremost in, especially in the performance area. And then it really speaks for itself. So people actually come and look for you and want you to come into their department and things like that. And all the gender stuff kind of goes away. So it's really about, for me, always making a place for yourself through results. And then those results will speak for themselves in the wider organization.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you with that. April is Women Empowerment Month on Talk Leadership with Cedrick. Now, it may not be anywhere in the rest of the world, but on Talk Leadership with Cedrick, it's.
I love that you invented that. That's great.
Yes. So, why do you believe, though, it's important to recognize the contribution of women that women are making in society in general, but especially in corporate America?
Well, I say, why not? Women are smart. They're hardworking. They make a difference. They deliver, and they comprise 55% of our workforce.
Yeah.
So, but they're still very underrepresented in the senior management levels, the executive leadership levels, board of directors. So women make things happen. You think about it, women are very multitasking. They can do a lot of things at one time. Why wouldn't you want that in your organization?
Exactly.
Versus somebody that can do one thing, only one thing at a time? So, just women, that there should be no question. It's been proven. There's the evidence-based, studies that show you have women in your organization, you're going to have better products. Your customers are going to be happier. You're going to be more profitable.
Yes.
No question.
You're absolutely right about that. And I'll just take my the background of Talk Leadership with Cedrick, all the prettiness that you see around this. It wasn't for me. From me that came with this idea. There's a young lady, Joanna, that said, Cedrick, here's what you need on Talk Leadership with Cedrick. You need to change it, put this background here. So she has all these different backgrounds that she's made for me to make it look better. And I get a lot of compliments from people saying, how did you get that background like that? And so to your point, a lady helped make this.
Yeah. A lot of talents and gifts out there to harness from women,
Absolutely. Well, Kathy, our audience always likes to, they're always interested in the career path that a leader took. And obviously you had a lot of different career paths that you took. What are some of the jobs that you had along the way that you thought were fun and interesting?
Well, both of us had long-term careers at Abbott, and I found the vast majority of my positions at Abbott were fun and interesting. What a great place to work. I tell people all the time, Abbott, it was like when I came to work for Abbott, it fit like a glove to me because it was aligned with my morals, my values. And, I just really, all the jobs were so interesting, but two stand out in my mind. One was where I took a totally different path. I had been in commercial for a number of years, and I wanted to really expand my skill set. Once again, going back to, what makes you progress in a company. The more skills you can develop, the more valuable you become as an employee. So I really stepped out of one particular functional area and went to a totally different other area, and I managed R&D and manufacturing support, neither of which I had ever been in. And they took a risk putting me in that position, but I convinced them to do it. I sought it out myself. And it was really one of the most fun and interesting, rewarding jobs I ever had at Abbott, because one, I had a very vast organization, a lot of people, which was really fun to learn how to lead and manage, all the different layers and things like that. But I also love the technical, part of it, and learning that whole part of our organization, which then it just helped me so much as I went in my career further. And I had those contacts, relationships, but also the knowledge. And then the second one that comes to mind is I was able to start a whole department from scratch. So it didn't exist. And what it was is I was director of alternate sourcing, and where we managed all our third-party worldwide suppliers and manufacturers. And so I developed the processes and programs and governance oversight of how we would do that. And that was really, I love to develop and invent and innovate. And so that was very rewarding also. So those were probably the two that stick out the most out of the 15 jobs there.
Well, 15 jobs, that's awesome that you have two of those that you felt were I know you liked all of them, but two that stand out. When I think about those type of things, I go, man, I really love this job. It's just because it maybe brought about a different type of challenge, and especially like your R&D job, it's totally different skill set and different things you had to bring to.
And it certainly also, Cedrick, gave me more credibility, as I moved up in my career, that I could say, I had that experience. I knew the lingo, and the terminology and things like that. And especially because I did that when I was managing all these worldwide manufacturer partners, I had been in the factory. I had, managed R&D. So I knew how that all works, So it's just valuable.
Nothing better than knowing how it all works, right? So when someone tells you something, say, no, wait a minute here.
Yes.
So I heard from a little bird. I won't say who I heard from, but I heard that, you were, in your younger years, you had an interesting job. You were a guide on the Ponderosa Ranch, right?
Yes.
Now, our more mature audience will know what the Ponderosa Ranch is, but
right. Well, I can give a little highlight of what it is, for those youngins out there that don't know. So I brought a little prop here. So the Ponderosa Ranch was like one of the longest running TV series in America. It ran from the 50s to the 70s. It was a Western TV series that took place on the north shore of Lake Tahoe. So Ponderosa Ranch was where the outdoor scenes were filmed. So when I was a senior in high school, two of my friends and I had heard about these girls that worked at the Ponderosa and were tour guides. So we found a way to contact them, got the names, numbers. Back then there were no cell phones, no Google, no computers. And we contacted the owner of the ranch, and we were hired, and we graduated one day. We were 18 years old, and then the next day hopped on a plane all by ourselves, went out to Reno to live and worked Memorial Day through Labor Day and were tour guides on the Ponderosa Ranch. And so it was a great experience, and I certainly learned a lot of life skills that today I, still use. Here's still my tin can, if you can see.
Yeah, I
There
can
we
see
go.
that.
But some of those things were like, I, of course we matured just so, fast, because here we were 18 years old, never been away from home, right out of high school. And here we were on our own living, buying groceries, all that kind of stuff you learn. So that was one of the big things. And then the independence thing, learning just how to be independent and how to take risks. Like, that was kind of risky going out there. Would it work out? And we just kind of learned along the way and, helped each other out. We definitely were homesick a couple times. I remember that. But boy, did we have fun, and Lake Tahoe, if nobody's ever been there, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I've traveled all over the world, and still to this day, that is just such a gorgeous place. I don't know if you've ever been there, but
Yeah. I've
yeah.
been to, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think because I was a tour guide, we gave tours to thousands and thousands of people every summer. I was there 3 summers while I was in college. And so my public speaking, got my over my fears of public speaking way back then at 18 years old.
Wow. Right on the Ponderosa Ranch with
Yes.
little Joe and yeah. So
Yeah,
it's funny.
met Lauren Green while we were
Did
there.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little side story here. My grandmother, in her later years, had Alzheimer's, and she was watching the show, and she says, "Oh, I thought little Joe died. He sure doesn't look like he's dead there."
And one thing too, I always remember when I'd be interviewing, like with Procter and Gamble or with Abbott, everybody was always so curious about that, like, wow, because everybody loved Bonanza.
Sure, yeah.
We're like, wow, tell me more about that. It was a good opener.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great opener, conversation starter, and continue the conversation, right? People always want interesting little facts like that. So, for years, Kathy, many women had to decide to raise a family or focus on a career, right? And for years, it was one or the other and not necessarily both, right? But you did both. So I want to ask a couple of questions around that, because we have audience members that may be watching and they're struggling in this area, right? So what factors did you consider when making that decision? And what advice would you give to women today about making that decision?
Sure. And it is a big decision. It's one that is a very personal one. I think when you make that decision, you can solicit, talk to people that have done it. I think that's important. There weren't a lot of my contemporaries at Abbott that had children. So, I was kind of a lone wolf, let alone I had 5 while I was there. So I had 0 coming in. So it's a very personal decision. So my husband and I, we were 10 years into our careers when we decided to have kids. So that's another thing for the women listening and men, is that it's not too late. I was 32 years old before I had my first of 5. So
Wow. Okay.
you still can have quite a few kids, even at that age. So when we sat down and thought about this, we made that decision to have careers and have children. And because our circumstances were such that I really had to work. My husband was an Air Force pilot, and he got out of the service to go into medicine. So he went into medicine late in life.
Okay.
So he was a couple years older than me, and he only started his medical career when we were making the decision to have kids. So he still had a long ways to go, like still almost 10 years of medical school residency and things like that. So I had to work, you know. And then after that all ended and he finished and was out working, by that time I had 20 years in. And I'm like, well, why not just continue? Because we had worked out a good system, you know, and I'll get at that. But so back to the decision making, you know, surely it's not easy. That's for sure. It's tough, but you have to all contribute. The kids, you know, your spouse, you have to all work together, or it's not even, it's, you know, going to be very tough. And of course, we were fortunate to have help, because it just, you know, Mark was on call all the time, and I was traveling a lot for Abbott in those years. So my kids are pretty robust, I gotta say. They always talk about those things. So I'd say it's a personal decision, and you know, talk to people that have done it. If you know, your spouse and you, it's important to be on the same page about it also.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I know it definitely has to be a difficult decision. And, you know, and I know in today's environment, some men make that decision to stay
Yes.
home and raise the kids. It'd be
Mhm.
interesting to see if Joe would have been able to stay home and raise the kids.
I'm going to ask him that. Yeah. You know, and Cedrick, I was going to add too, the landscape has really changed in the workplace. It's much more supportive for women
Sure.
and men. You know, they have paternity leave for men, but women, you know, there's all of the things, part-time work. They, you know, offer remote working. I mean, with COVID, everybody knows how to do that. I
Yes.
did remote working way before it even was like invented. I worked for Abbott for over 10 years remotely. So, you know, there's all those wonderful things, supportive measures that are in place now in the work environment in most companies. Now, I know that's not all for all
Sure.
companies, but a lot of them are, especially the bigger companies. So that's something to consider. You aren't on your own, and they'll work with you on those things. And it never harmed my career
Right.
at all.
Yeah. But that's awesome. You just have to be willing to ask the question if they will. Um,
Yes.
and I know that sometimes people will be afraid to ask that question. Can I work remote? Can I
Yes.
do something, have an alternative
Right.
work schedule,
Mhm.
right? You're afraid because you don't want to put yourself out there, and then they're thinking, well, he or she is thinking of leaving, thinking of doing all these other things. And sometimes it's not even that. You just have to ask the question, and it can
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
Well, that's a very good point, Cedric. What I would recommend too, when you're having those discussions, put some thought into it. And when you go and propose it, you know, lay out, because nothing worse than going to a manager and the manager's like, oh, you want to do that? Like, how would I work? How, what, you know, if you go in there and lay it out and say, this is how it would work, how I would do it, I could come in, you know, 1 or 2 days a week, the rest I'll work remotely, you know, lay out a plan, a concise
Mhm.
plan, and, you know, that you've given a lot of thought to, and they're going to be much more open and amenable to that if you've thought through it already.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you on that. Awesome. Well, thanks very much for helping the women out there in the audience better understand that, and guys too, but more importantly, women, because I know it obviously we can't have babies yet. So,
Not yet, but
yeah. And I say yet, but you know, some companies trying to work on something.
yes.
So, you know, we'll be in our, you know, rocking chairs, and we'll be like, well, Abbott got FDA approval for.
Uh,
So some people are reluctant to take a lateral position, right? Maybe even take a step back. Did you ever have to take a lateral or have to consider taking a lateral but you knew that position was going to help you elevate you to another level?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I did. I actually requested and sought them out. Once again, it goes back to that theme of making yourself more valuable to the organization. The wider breadth of skills, the depth of skills that you have, you'll be a much more valuable employee overall. And so taking a lateral move, it's not a step back in my mind whatsoever. I did it, a number of times. I would say in those 15 positions, I probably did maybe four or five laterals at least.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So, and they were maybe in a totally different functional area. Like one time I went from US marketing to worldwide marketing, that was a lateral. In business development, I took just into different business, product areas from ADD, Abbott Diagnostics to Abbott Molecular, those kind of things. But it just really expanded my breadth and depth of experience.
Awesome.
So I would highly advise it and recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. So we have a segment. Sure you've seen this segment before. It's called Would You Rather? So let's play a few.
I can't remember how this goes, but
it's very easy. I'm asking you some would you rather questions. So we'll start off with an easy one. Would you rather have a life rewind button or a life pause button?
I would say pause button, because I always reflect on my life. I've never, ever thought I wanted to rewind it. Ever, never once. I mean, and the reason being, because if there were times that weren't so great, I learned from those times,
Yeah.
Now, if you could control and, we'll go into how my husband passed away, of course, you don't want that to happen. But
right.
Pause sometimes, yes, I wish I could pause. The kids grew up so fast. I wish I could have paused some of that so I could, because some of it, like my kids will ask a question, blah, 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 when I was, 7 or 5 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, don't remember. That's all a blur. I just put my head to the grindstone a lot of times. So this got through day by day.
I understand. So would you rather meet your great grandparents or your great grandchildren?
Gosh, that's a hard one. Can I say both? Well, great grandparents, that would be interesting, because all my great grandparents came from Europe and Russia. So that really would be fascinating to me to, be able to sit down and talk to them and how they, lived and things like that, because my grandparents were immigrants. So my parents are first generation
okay.
Americans. So
wow.
I would say maybe great grandparents.
Great grandparents. Yeah, it's always great to go back and hear some of the stories.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it. So would you rather be stuck in an elevator or stuck on a ski lift?
I've been stuck on a ski lift many times. I think I'd like that, because I'm kind of claustrophobic. So the elevator, icky poo. No, don't like that.
Look, Kathy, just thinking about being stuck on a ski lift right now, my knees are getting like tingly.
I wouldn't mind that.
No, because I can't. All I could see is way down there and me falling.
I know they're gonna get me down eventually. I mean, I suppose the elevator too, but that closed in thing, no
Yeah.
thanks. I'd rather be out in the open.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I can't do it. I'm serious. My legs
And
are
I've
like,
been stuck on those ski lifts so many times with my kids, my husband. So,
oh man. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I'm sweating right now thinking of. So, would you rather go to dinner alone or to a concert alone?
hmm, I could do either. I've done both. And I'm not uncomfortable in either case. So,
Okay. All right.
you know,
All right. Couple more here. Would you rather be a ninja or a pirate?
a ninja. I don't watch TV or what's a ninja do?
The ninja is the one that throws the star. You know, the karate movie throws the star and cuts someone up.
Oh God, maybe a ninja. I don't know. I don't know. I remember being on a pirate ship in Mexico once with my kids, and that seemed a little barbarian. So
Okay.
maybe a ninja.
The last one. Would you rather have $1 million in Amazon gift cards or $100,000 in real money?
The real money, because
The
I'd
real money.
invest it. I don't need more stuff.
Well, Amazon is always ringing that doorbell. So I just,
Yes. In fact, this morning at 6 a.m., the Amazon guy was at our door and the dog went crazy. I'm like, what the heck? Who ordered something?
see. So there you go. Might as well just go on ahead and just tell Jeff Bezos, all right, I got all these gift cards.
Yeah.
um, so, Kathy, leaders come in all different types of packages and with different types of strengths, right? What are some strengths that you think that are important or critical for leaders to have? Give us 2 or 3 strengths that you believe that leaders should have.
Okay. Well, I always am a believer that you got to lead by example. So you set the example. Like I would never ask somebody to do something. In fact, this would always go through my mind when I was managing, and leading a department. If I would ask somebody to do something, I had to be willing to do it myself, and so that's very, very important. And then also, not only in my personal life and my work life, anticipating is so important. And I always try to instill that in my children too. You just got to anticipate, and things will go much smoother in your life and your workplace if you anticipate so that you aren't surprised. Be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
That's important. And then be solution oriented. I always was cognizant if I was dealing with an issue in the workplace and I needed some help from my manager or whatever, I would go in and present the issue, but I'd always present, here are some potential solutions to it. Likewise, when any of my employees would come into my office, I would always, of course, want to know, well, what's your recommendation? I don't want to just hear the problem.
Right. Yes, exactly. And some people say, hey, if you're going to bring a problem, bring 3 solutions, and one of those has to include you in it.
Yes, for sure. Don't dump it on my lap.
Yeah, absolutely. See what happens in that situation. You don't have that many problems anymore.
Right.
So, good leaders, Kathy, ask great questions. So what has been some questions that you thought, wow, that's a great question? Either someone asked that question of you, or great question that you always ask of your team.
Well, it kind of ties to what we were just talking about. So if employees would come into me and tell me a problem, or the same with my kids, I would want to know, and I would always ask, have you determined the root cause? Because if you can understand the root cause, then you can have a much more viable solution. So then that would be the next piece. But I would say, do you have the root cause? They would say, yes, I determine it's this. Then do you have the 3 solutions?
Mm-hmm.
And which one involves you? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So much of what you do in your personal life can transfer, of course, to your work life. You should never be 2 different people. That's very important.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Although sometimes I don't know, some people I want them to be totally different because I see them on the weekends.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a little, yeah, there is that kind of line. Yeah. I mean, for the bigger,
Yeah, no, for
your
the most part.
values, your morals.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. So, and this question is probably, I probably shouldn't even ask you because it's growth has to be intentional, right?
Yes.
And what do you do for personal and professional growth? I know one thing already that you're doing, but
Yes. Well, I believe in continuous learning. So one of the things, if you're in a career right now, and let's say the company doesn't do training on site or have training programs, go and seek your own. There's so much online now you can do. You can get credits for it. Go to your local community college. I did that. Like there was a time when I was working, and I was working a lot of hours, and it was I don't know if I think it was before we had kids, and my husband said, it was before, you need to go do something besides work, and so I went and did gourmet classes for a year and became a gourmet cook.
oh wow,
Also, which I love cooking, and so I did that, and then I took woodworking, and this while I was working because I needed another outlet, and then as time went on, I would take classes all the time outside of work, but also Abbott had some very great training programs through the years we would attend. I always love to learn because I always love to grow. And for me to utilize, to really truly see what my gifts and talents are, I needed to keep honing those skills, So, and then of course, after retirement from Abbott, I went and got my RN degree. So that was fun.
So, folks, I don't want you to miss this. She just said after 30 years of working, she didn't just say, well, you know what, I'm going to sit at home and watch Judge Judy all day. She said, I'm going to go back and not just get, I don't want to say a sociology degree is easy. However, she didn't just go get any degree. She went to nursing and got a nursing degree, which is a difficult degree.
Yeah, well, the reason I did that was when my husband and I, Mark, were planning our future retirement. We always had a 10-year, 20-year plan. So not only should you have goals at work, you should have goals and plans, strategic plans in your personal life. Always a big believer in that. So we had thought, okay, we'll do medical missions together when I retired and he retired. And he was a surgeon. And so we were going along that thought process. Well, he came down with pancreatic cancer in 2012. He passed away in 2013. Wow. And then I decided to leave Abbott in 2014 because it was just very difficult. I was still raising the kids. I had the 5 kids still at home and dependent on me. And so I retired, but I still planned to do the RN thing and do missions on my own. So that is kind of the history of why that transpired.
Wow. And you're not even done with there. You're now in
Yes.
school?
So being an RN, I, worked the last 4 years in women's health, and I just felt I was being called uh, to enhance that a little and bring faith into the picture. So, being a whole person, you have to have body, mind, and spirit. And so, as you were saying in my bio, I want to tie the whole faith element and spiritual element to being healthy. So not only the physical body do I want to minister to, but I want to minister to the spiritual side and the mind side. So that's why I'm seeking, education in theology at this point.
Wow. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. It, you, what I want you to go back to what I said earlier: consistency, intentionality, persistence, focus. You can add in drive, goals, determination. All of those things go hand in hand. As Kathy said, not only in your career but also in your life. When it becomes a part of you, then no matter what you're doing, you could be playing underwater basket weaving. Those same skills are gonna come out, right? And so this is really what I want to, and this is why I wanted Kathy also to kick off Women Empowerment Month, right? Because of the consistency, the persistence, all of those things are important to recognize. And as you see all the guests that we have on the show, you're going to see a similar theme. So I'm excited about that. So what advice would you give women, emerging women leaders who are trying to find find leadership opportunities?
Yes, that's a really good question. I would highly recommend them going to their local community and try to get on some like not-for-profit board of directors. I did that. I mean, you mentioned I was on some. I was on the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation board, the Medical Society board, the American Counseling Foundation board, and what that did is it helped me. First of all, you're sitting by some major bigwigs in the community, so you learn a lot from them, and you're exposed to areas maybe you haven't been in your career. P&Ls, and understanding those. All kinds of things, and of course, governance, board governance, and just a higher level of leadership and management you're exposed to. So I tell you, not-for-profits are always looking for great women, qualified women who have, worked in the workplace and are working in the workplace. I would just highly, highly recommend that.
Awesome. Take advantage of those opportunities when you see them, folks. And in case you say, well, how do I find these opportunities? And LinkedIn does a great job of posting those type of positions, but also find out from your local area chamber. They sometimes find out about these opportunities, and they can really be a good resource for you.
Yeah. Very good. Yep.
So let's talk about mentoring and mentorship. In your career, having a good mentor, someone that can not necessarily advocate for you when you're not there, but just someone to help you navigate and understand what things to do. Did you have a mentor during your career, and what value did they add to you?
Absolutely. I mean, I totally believe in mentorship. And the one thing is, like the question, if I'm a female, do I want a female mentor or a male mentor? I don't think that matters. I think what you want to do is find somebody who you want to emulate, who does and performs like the way what you look up to. They have strong morals and values. They align with your morals and values. And in every case that I had a mentor, I asked, so they don't just drop in your lap. A lot of people ask how that happens. or it's not arranged, you go seek. Highly, advise that. So my first, I had mentors outside of like in Procter & Gamble, I had somebody that didn't work for Procter. That was my mentor at that time. And then in Abbott, Miles White was my first mentor. This was way before he was the CEO of Abbott. And now, of course, he's the board chair. But he helped me, hone my skills, helped me make decisions on what jobs, what laterals to take. He advised me, those kind of things. So he was very helpful. And then in 2002, I asked Joe Nemmers. Now, you might want to know, how did my mentor become my husband? That probably isn't always the case.
Yeah. Let me get my tea.
Wait, let me have a drink of water before that. Anyway, so in 2002, that is the time when Joe came over and became our divisional president at Abbott Diagnostics. And, when I saw him as he came in, I had never met him before. He had worked at Abbott, though, in other divisions. And I thought, wow, what a great leader, I felt the same morals, values I did, but just had great skills in leadership. So I asked him to be my mentor. And so he and his wife, Kathy, became very good friends of me and Mark. And so through the years, we had great friendships and did things together. And then, as I said, Mark died in 2014, and I became a widow. And then Joe's wife, Kathy, passed away in 2016. And then we reconnected after that, and we got married in 2018. So that's how I married my mentor. But he's still my mentor. I mean, Joe's just a great leader. That's why you've had him on, your programs. And he's a great advisor to me in making this, big decisions, both for my family, my kids, and he mentors some of my children as he does his own, helps them along in their careers. And interesting point, of our 9 kids, a lot of them are in healthcare in some capacity. So it's interesting. And I have 4 daughters. So a lot of this stuff I'm telling and talking about women, I, of course, try to, relay those same things to my daughters. Of course, I have a very vested interest in them being successful,
Yes.
And you utilize those same advisement and leadership skills with them.
Awesome.
So mentorship, an absolute must in my mind.
Awesome. Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And actually, I'm glad you gave the backstory. I always wondered, but I said, I'm not going to ask that.
I know there's a lot of people, avid people out there that want to know that. So now it's out there on the airwaves.
Yes. Yeah. All of a sudden, this is going to be the most watched video. Oh my God. Now, so we've talked about a lot about your career and what you're doing. And so tell us something, just in your personal life, that some trips or ventures that you're excited about, that you're going to be maybe coming up soon.
Well, with 9 kids, the calendar is always pretty full, even though they're adults, or some are on the verge of adulthood. Like I still have, a son that's 19 years old. And so I have 2 in college still. Joe's are grown and out of the house and everything, but I'm still raising kids. I think he might have talked about strategic and tactical parenting. I'm still tactically parenting, And so I brought Joe into the fold. He's like, I'm done with that. But anyway, with 9 kids, you know, gosh, we got grandbabies being born all the time and marriages. Like my daughter got engaged last week. So now we're planning the big wedding for November. My one daughter's graduating from college, UW-Madison, in May. So we've got that. We want to go on a road trip. You and I were talking about that earlier, and want to do that in the fall. So there's a lot of things. You know, last year during COVID, because there are 9 kids, we still had all these events. We had 2 grandbabies born, so definitely had to be there for that. We had the baptisms then. My son graduated from high school, so we had the big party for that. You know, then the holidays and stuff. So we didn't even know what COVID was because
I was gonna say, it doesn't seem like you guys shut down.
No, and you know, we're from coast to coast. We have some in Boston, some in California, and everywhere in between.
Wow.
So it's a busy place.
See, I'm gonna start calling that the Joe and Kathy show.
Yes. Yeah, we always love that Lucy and Desi thing, you know.
Yeah.
And so we could maybe come up with a good screenplay for the Joe and Kathy show.
Yeah, there you go. So we're almost wrapping up here, but a couple of questions for you. So nobody's home. Joe's gone. It's just you and the 4 walls of your house. What dessert are you going to eat?
Dessert. Oh, gosh. Something lemon, like those lemon bars. Although I don't eat much dessert. I'm more of a savory person, you know, so you got the sweet person, the savory person. I tend to more of the savory.
Savory.
Stuff.
Okay.
Like I love chips. Ask my family, you know, I'm like, chips, give them to me. Forget the cake.
Okay. So chips are going to be your thing. See, I'm a popcorn person. So there's a Cinemark theater that's like right down the street from our house. And they have what's called a Papa bag. It lasts a week. It's about this big. You can't see everything, but it's really big, right? So every Saturday, I'll go and I'll buy that big bag, and it'll last me for the whole week. Because every night, as soon as this show is over tonight, I'm going to go and sit down and watch the basketball game, and I'm going to eat a bowl of popcorn.
Awesome, Papa Cedrick.
Yeah.
That's great.
So the last question for you, and thank you very much for coming on the show. I've had a great time. Hopefully you have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun.
So the last question is, if there was a book that was written about you, what would the title of the book be? And what would the summary on the back of the book say?
Well, I would say small but determined. And and then the subtitle would be never tell me no, because that will just mean that I'll do it.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay, small but determined, but never tell me no. Okay.
Yeah, for everybody, just so you know, I'm 5'1". So, and Joe's like 6'3". So, so small but determined. Yeah, and never tell me no.
Never tell you no. And the summary on the back of the book would say what about you?
Well, I've faced adversity, things we haven't even gone into here today, but it's how you deal with that adversity and how you learn from those situations and never use them as an excuse not to grow some more and give back to our world. We're on this earth for a very short period of time in my mind. Mm-hmm. And we're all given, gifts from God, and it's our job to utilize those gifts and talents. And I think it takes almost a whole lifetime to discover all what those are. I mean, I still am. I would have never thought back when I was 20 what I was doing now today and pursuing, because it was just along that way that I learned, and it was through the best of times and the worst of times that I, was able to formulate who I am, and continually I'm on a journey. I had this thing I put up on my mirror and in my office for a long time, and it said, "You're never too old to dream another dream."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I just really believe that.
Yes, I really like that. So we have to make sure that, so you got to get your book. We got to make sure we hold up our book, right?
Oh, yes. My
Make sure.
husband wrote 30 Observations on Leadership, which I highly recommend. And we're going to get it out on Amazon, but we're still waiting for the, Library of Congress number. So
Right.
that's what we still need. But a lot of leadership, just great examples and knowledge in this book of what great it takes to be a great leader from Joe.
Absolutely. I absolutely love it. Recommend it. And as soon as it comes out, folks, we're going to be talking about it again here on the show as well. It's one of the great leadership books around. So looking forward to having that. So folks, Kathy, thank you very much for being on the show. And our audience, thank you guys for tuning in. And I know you got your sip of tea tonight. Kathy gave us the nod on some things that we didn't know, but we were wondering. I was moments saying, So thank you.
You'll have to have me on again so we can, we could dive more into that. So
absolutely, we will. We'll have to do that during rating season.
Well, not that part of it, but
I'm just kidding. So folks, as I always tell you, actually, before I tell you that, tomorrow night, as we continue Women Empowerment Month on Talk Leadership with Cedrick, tomorrow night we will have Dr. Kathy Lewis Thomas on from Lake Charles, Louisiana at 5:30 Central Time. So make sure that you tune in. Same thing. And as always, as I always tell you, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and don't be on the menu. Thank you guys, and good night.